Read Books event featuring the amazing Lea Carpenter and Kathy Wang.
So I went to Langley, and like a day there convinced me that I wanted to try and write about that culture. And it's the story of how one case officer in particular, his life intersects with a young woman who's living in New York City, married to a guy who dropped out of Brown to start a record company, sold it very successfully, and is running for Senate in New York. So there is that interesting conundrum in that community that you know, the people with the best stories are never going to tell you they're even affiliated with the organization. So I was just lucky to have one or two people who acted as guides to get me to talk to people, but at the end that's the research, and then you have to come up with a story.
Which is amazing. But I want to hear a little more about your dad, because he has been a huge influence on you. You post about him a lot and talk about him, and he had a role in the military as well. Do you think that's influenced your sort of need to learn more about this community? And
I do. My father died 10 years ago, Christmas 2008, and 2 days after he died, the former director of the FBI came to my mother's house. It was nice for me to have responses from people in the communities that I wrote about.
Also, I wanted to hear about how you went from writing novels to writing a screenplay. Lee wrote the screenplay to a movie called Mile 22, which came out with Mark Wahlberg. So I want to hear how that came about as well, and how that process differed.
That came about because the first book that I wrote, as I said, was kind of set in the Navy SEAL community. And this writer and director, Peter Berg, had made a movie called Lone Survivor. Like, I am really, really such a bad procrastinator, and I work best when I just have a sickness where I work best probably when I'm under a lot of time pressure.
Yeah. I have to